Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, over 12 and a half years strong. Got a great show, a great Eagles-Bills preview show coming your way this week. We have got our good friend from BuffaloRumblings.com. You know we love our SB Nation sites, and also she is like almost at 100 straight Buffalo Bills games that she has attended. It's getting real close. I think it's like 98 at this point. We've got our good friend Sara Larson. Sara, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on this week and dive into this pregame preview show.
Of course, Jeff. It's kind of crazy that we've been able to do this so many times
I
already
know.
because of how many times the Bills and the Eagles have been able to play each other lately. So this is great.
It really is. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the last time, man, it was a really close game. There were some questionable calls as well. I
Was
feel
that
like
the
both.
rain game?
I
It
think
was
that was
the
the
rain
rain
game.
game. Yeah.
Oh, I got
Yeah.
soaked.
I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, it was in Philly, right? I
Yes.
mean, it was in Philly. And I believe that's the last time these two teams have played. And I've been reflecting on this season, not just as an Eagles fan, but what this NFL season has been overall for so many teams, Sara. And I feel like the Bills and the Eagles are in a very similar type of situation this season. Coming into the season with high expectations to start the year. They've both won a lot of games, but there have been a lot of hiccups and a lot of challenges throughout the season with both of these teams as we're heading into this latter part of the season here. And I think as we look towards the second of the last game here, I'm wondering for you as a Bills fan, somebody who covers this team as well, what has been the biggest challenge for this Bills team this year from an overall perspective that might be possibly prevalent during this upcoming game against the Eagles? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree with you over from like the overall perspective. I think the biggest challenge so far for the Bills this season has been consistency.
Yeah.
And that might be the same thing for Philadelphia. But especially like situationally, the Bills have won games, but it hasn't always been clean. Even when we win, we joke that sometimes you walk out not feeling quite like you
Yes.
have in years
Yes.
past, you know? So
It's been like that for
um
the Eagles too throughout this entire season.
yeah, I think that the Bills have also, like, really started off slow in a lot of games, and they've turned the ball over and had a lot of penalties, and that's kind of been their arch nemesis this season is kind of themselves. We go into some of these games that were questionable, like, can we win this game? And we play really well.
Yeah.
And then we have games that we're supposed to just dominate,
Yep.
and we go in and we look like the lesser of the teams. So
Yeah. That is an extremely prevalent storyline throughout this Eagles season as well. And that's why I think this game is going to be so very interesting. Two teams with some pretty nice winning records here this season. And again, the expectations so very high for both teams heading into this latter part of the season. And who knows if these two teams may end up facing each other in the playoffs. And you know what I mean by that.
yeah.
Who knows what's
And
going to happen?
I'll be out in San Francisco, so for the Super Bowl, so it
Yes.
would be an amazing to have Bills versus Eagles
Oh,
fans, for everything. Oh, I don't think San Francisco would be prepared for us.
I don't think so. I mean, Eagles fans, Bills fans in
Oh,
a Super Bowl. I mean, crazy insanity is what
it
would
would be.
ensue. Absolutely. Well, as we're moving along here, Sara, we talk about on our Opposition Territory podcast here every week about the strengths and the weaknesses of the teams that the Eagles are facing. So I'd love to get into that with you right now. If you could talk about what the biggest strength has been of this Bills team as we're heading into week 17 of this season. What is that strength? And then we'll get into the weakness in a little bit. But what's the biggest strength that we should be keeping our eyes on here?
Yeah, I think everyone expects me to say Josh Allen, but I'm actually gonna, switch it up and say James Cook.
Okay.
His evolution this year and what he's brought to the team, at this current point, the Bills actually are over 50% rushing for our, snap counts, which is the first year that has been this under Josh Allen's reign since 2018.
Yeah.
So his evolution on the field has just been crazy. I know that in the beginning when he first started, there were certain things that I would have, issues with, and I feel like James Cook has kind of hit on all those issues, and He hits the hole hard now, which was one of the complaints I had years ago. He is not always trying to dance to the outside, which is something that I had, a few years ago. He's taking it right up the middle. He's kind of looking and seeing what the defenses are giving him, and he's making good decisions. I mean, we still have a couple of issues with a couple of fumbles here and there, but I think that he's definitely probably the biggest strength. It's allowing the Bills to not be so, Josh Allen reliant, and
Yeah.
I appreciate what he's brought. Everyone was questioning whether or not we should give him that extension, and I think he's not only earned that extension, he's exceeded it.
Absolutely. I like your answer with this, quite frankly. And before we get into like the weaknesses of this Bills team, I have viewed Josh Allen whenever he's been on my TV screen here in Pennsylvania. I have viewed Josh Allen as being a bit more conservative this season. Like he's not necessarily trying to throw into a very, very tight window as we've been so accustomed to him doing. We've certainly seen it from time to time and game to game, but his reliance on that, I think he's gotten perhaps a little bit more conservative. And maybe that's because of what you were just mentioning. The fact that James Cook is now at 287 rushes during this season, over 1,500 yards, averaging 5.3 yards per carry and 12 touchdowns on this season. I don't necessarily think Josh Allen needs to have that absolute precision in those tight windows when you have a running back like James Cook that is able to really help provide the foundation of where this offense is. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that we, we've needed it because from the Bills' perspective, they haven't had the wins that we would hope to have had with our drafting a wide receiver,
Right.
grabbing wide receivers from free agency, etc. We've obviously also left quite a few of our wide receivers go. Two of which are now on the Patriots, which you know hurts me every week to see
Right.
that happening. But I think that Josh hasn't had to be reliant on forcing the ball into wide receivers and stuff. And when he does, he gets caught up in that.
Yeah.
So his issues with a few turnovers here and there over the last few years have usually been when he's trying to force the ball.
Yeah.
It's not all running through him anymore. It's running through. It really is the focal point of the offense right now is James Cook.
Yeah. Well, let's flip the coin here. What has been the biggest weakness of this Bills team so far this season that we may end up seeing this week against the Eagles? What are your thoughts
We
here?
we are definitely not gonna see it this weekend because the Bills are gonna know that it's their weakness and they're not gonna allow it. No, I'm joking. No, I would say everyone kind of knows this right now. The Bills are the bottom three, I think, in run defense
Yeah.
this season. The run defense consistency has just been up and down. We have a good game against one team, and then we have a game against like the Falcons, and we let Bijan run for 200 plus yards on us. So but then again, we went against the Panthers and ended up holding them under 100 yards. So
Yeah.
little things like that. It's just the consistency has been pretty damning to us all season. The Bills passing defense is top 3 in the
Right.
NFL right now. But I think a lot of that is because teams know that they can run on us instead of, why take issue with the passing game when we could just run all over you. So I think that with the Bills that they need to do is they need to make sure that they watch the line and make sure that they stay stay diligent on ensuring all the gaps are protected and everything else. But
Yeah.
the I think our biggest issue is once you get to the linebacker or safeties. So if any ball carrier gets to that second level, that's when we just don't have the speed to run you down. So if you guys hit that second level, most likely it's going to, be a gain for 40, 50 yards, if not, all the way to the house. So
Yeah.
that is our biggest fear is when we're taking on a running back that can hit that next level. And we have that breakdown in coverage, which tends to seem to happen once a game, regardless who we're taking on. So
Yeah. Well, we are definitely going to get into that in a little bit more detail as we talk about the Bills defense, the Eagles offense, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say with regard to the Bills secondary going up against these Eagles wide receivers. And we're certainly going to be getting to that after our break. But before we go to our first break here, I wanted to really dive into with you, Sarah, Josh Allen, and just he's such an amazing quarterback. As we all know, any team would absolutely love to have him under center, but he has had some criticism come his way this season. Some of it pretty harsh, actually, specifically from about a month ago. I remember reading some articles and just hearing some dialogue. Josh Allen doesn't have it anymore. What's going on with his game? I don't necessarily think all that was fair, quite frankly. He's one of the great quarterbacks of this league and the reigning MVP of the NFL as well. So, but I'm wondering, how would you assess Josh Allen's season here, given that, again, he is the reigning MVP? And again, I guess going back to those expectations towards the beginning of this season, what are your thoughts on the type of season Josh Allen has had here?
yeah, see, I'm not one to push back on the criticism because I
Okay.
was in the middle of the season, I was one of the people questioning, and I love Josh. Trust me. I'm like every other play, I'm like, that's my quarterback. That's my
Right, right.
quarterback. But I question it as well. I'm like, what is going on with him? Is he injured? Is it his relationship status and his marriage? Is he not quite into the season mentally? Um, so we all did it, and it's not without fault, but at the same time, we all say that, as I mentioned earlier, we don't really have a number one wide receiver. Sometimes we don't even have a number two.
Right, right.
It's been pretty bad. A lot of the wide receivers can't get open, and it puts him into a bind because they're not consistent. So I honestly think though when you're the reigning MVP, the expectations are kind of almost unrealistic.
Yeah.
Anything short of perfection, it gets magnified. You're getting put under this magnifying glass. And I think that there was a lot of controversy last year on whether or not he was the right pick for MVP to begin with. Should it be Lamar? Should it be him? And I'm going to kind of say the same argument as I had against Lamar last year was Lamar had Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
So was he even the MVP of his team, let alone the league?
Yeah.
And I think that we're kind of looking at that in the same lens this year for Josh. I don't know if he's the MVP of the team, let alone the league this year because of James Cook. And with all that being said though, we know Josh's season hasn't been flawless. He hasn't needed to be, but he's still his same impactful self. And
Yes.
he's been asked to do more with less this season with, like I said, the supporting cast has just not been there. And I think that the burden of that he carries going week in, week out is probably different than, you know, 30 other teams in the league. I think
Yeah.
Mahomes might have been, Lamar has that same burden, I would think, because they're all consistently so great all the time that they're held to this other bar.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't forget one
so
Jalen Hurts as well, quite frankly, the MVP of the Super Bowl. I see a correlation between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts from the expectation standpoint about what each fan base wants from that quarterback. And sometimes they haven't necessarily been able to give what everybody wants, but they have been able to deliver and come through when it actually ends up mattering. I see a correlation between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts in that regard, and it's
right.
really fascinating.
Right, and I think that with Jalen Hurts, I think that, again, he has Saquon Barkley behind him, so
Right.
when the passing game isn't quite up to par, they question whether or not, he can get it done, and I think that, like you said, the correlation, a lot of people are saying the same thing with Josh is, we won the other day against, Cleveland. It wasn't a pretty second half game, but his stat line wasn't great. He had under 200 yards passing and, actually no touchdowns for
Yeah.
Josh, which is, a rarity. but we still won the game. He was careful with the ball. He, got the ball. He got rid of the ball when he needed to. He gave it to James Cook when he needed to, to get the ball out of his hands. So I think that it's all about what they do when they're called upon, and I think that both Jalen and Josh are two of the best in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Again, folks, we're talking to Sara Larson from BuffaloRumblings.com, great SB Nation site. And she's close to 100 games attending Buffalo Bills games, I should say. Traveling all over the place. And again, they're doing great stuff over at BuffaloRumblings.com. If folks want to connect with you, Sara, where can they find you on the interwebs out there?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's Sara_Larson is my Twitter handle. I'm also on, other social media for cherries_66. I post all my pictures from traveling to the consecutive games and stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you are watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe to the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast show. You can also hit the bell to be notified when we post new videos. We're also on various social media sites as well. Just search out the Philadelphia Sports Table. You can search out myself and my co-host, Eric. Len, bless his soul, not on social media anymore. Good for him. So with that being said, folks, we're going to take a break. And when we get back, we got a lot more of our preview show coming your way. All right, we are back with our good friend Sara Larson from BuffaloRumblings.com as we dive into this upcoming matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills. So let's get into some of these matchups here. Look, the Eagles' offensive line, Sara, is certainly not what it was last season. So many injuries that have happened with this team. They're being asked to do so much in this offense that sometimes I personally believe from an injury standpoint that a few of these guys have been dealing with all year. They're just not able to be that cohesive unit. However, things have been as ugly as they have been. They've been a little bit more in sync over the course of the past couple weeks here, which is nice for us Eagles fans to see. But I'm wondering, how do you think, you mentioned the Buffalo defense before, how do you think the Buffalo Bills defense will really try to penetrate this Eagles offense this Sunday? I think there's some strengths and weaknesses both sides here. How do you think this is all going to manifest itself?
Yeah, I think that what's good for the Eagles is you guys seem to be getting healthy at the right time.
Yeah.
I think you guys are expecting Lane Johnson to come back, which will definitely help the line even more. I think with the Bills defense, the problem has been, we've lost several players for 2, 3, 4 game stretches, and it's whether or not the next person's gonna, step up. But
Yeah.
I think discipline, and then getting the timely pressures. I don't think that the Bills are gonna overpower the Eagles line. You guys' line is massive. And I think that honestly, my biggest concern is that the Eagles offense is kind of built to exploit if you're over aggressive and you don't hit home.
Yeah.
So, the little screens, the dump offs to Saquon, those are going to kind of be my biggest fears, because like I said, once you guys hit that second level, it's to the house. You guys are
Yeah.
going to be gone. And then Jalen Hurts can hurt you with his feet. So if we don't kind of maintain the gap integrity, that is, whether it's with the spy or just someone kind of always honing down on him, it concerns me long term, how we can maintain him and keep him in the pocket for the game. I think that that's going to be kind of the answer for the Bills.
Okay.
And I think that we'll blitz a little bit. I don't think that we're going to be overly aggressive. I think that if we can kind of disrupt his timing, that usually puts Hurts in a little bit of a predicament where he doesn't always do well in those cases. So
True. Yep.
the Bills the last couple of weeks have also been really good with getting their hands up, and I think that if we can have a few of those tip passes, we've kind of exploited that on turnovers. Those tip drills where we're tipping it up in the air. Benford's had a couple. Bosa had a tip ball last week that Daquan Jones ended up recovering intercepting it. Actually, it was a tip, so he intercepted it. So we've been doing that a lot lately. So if we can get our hands up and kind of make Jalen a little feeling a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket, I think that that's going to be kind of their defensive, game plan. I don't think you can really hold Saquon back. I think he's going to get his yards,
Yeah.
especially against our defense. And it's just making sure we shut down the wide receivers.
I think Saquon will get those yards if the Eagles' offensive line is able to remain as in sync as they have been. You mentioned Lane Johnson as well. Just I think we may end up seeing that. But another matchup that I'm really going to be focused on too, and again, we touched on it earlier before the break, is the Bills secondary going against these Eagles wide receivers. And I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. And if Jalen Hurts is really able to get the ball downfield, which we did not see much of at all last week against the Commanders. There were a lot of dinks and dunks, just a bunch of 5-yard out type of routes. We did not see the ball being thrown down the field. And I'm not sure we're going to see that this week here. I mean, Jalen Hurts was only averaging a little over 6 yards per attempt last week against the Commanders. So, Sarah, what are your thoughts on the Bills secondary going up against the Eagles wide receivers and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert here?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have underestimated the Bills secondary a little bit. They've been quietly one of the steadier units this season
Yeah, yeah.
when healthy. I think that part of that is because teams are running against them more, so obviously the stats show a little bit different. But I'll have to say that when they can keep everything in front of them and they kind of force the quarterback so everybody is in sync and they can force the quarterback to make bad decisions. That's kind of when they are winning so much. But I can't say enough about the veterans that have come on and stepped up. Trey White, Jordan Poyer, they've just been remarkable. Two players that even Bills fans completely wrote off have been pretty, I'm not going to say they're perfect every single play, but they've been exceptional.
Pretty
Trey
solid.
White,
Yeah.
yeah, Trey
Mhm.
White, Christian Benford, the rookie Maxwell Harrison when he came back from being injured. And then obviously I still think we have one of the best nickel corners in the league in Taron Johnson, but I think they all have their work cut out for them, but I think they're up for it. And then Jordan Poyer has been exactly what uh Bishop has needed. Bishop's in his second year, and just night and day from the first couple of weeks of the season to what he is now. I think that our DBs are all doing well, whether it's our corners or our safeties. So I think that my biggest concern with the Eagles is that you guys are not one dimensional. You guys have both
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
running game and a passing game if once you guys get everything clicking. But I honestly think that that Dallas is going to be my biggest concern there at tight end. Having again, I think Taron Johnson's going to do a great job. I think that we have good coverage tight ends, but those 5, 6, 7 yard little dump down passes add up. And that's what I think my biggest concern is those are going to open up across the middle of the field and you guys are going to kind of, dip and dunk all the way down the field, doing those little things. And then obviously Saquon, making his mark. I'm concerned if that happens that you're going to end up having Smith kind of downfield quick. He's so fast,
Yeah.
being able to get open.
It's going to be, yeah, it's absolutely going to be fascinating to see. You mentioned Dallas Goedert. We, as Eagles fans, we always know that tight end screen that's coming. Seriously, we know the formation. We know when he goes in motion what we are going to see. Dallas Goedert really could be one of the one of the X factors for the Eagles offense, certainly. So, Sarah, before I let you go, my friend, as we do on all of our opposition territory podcasts when we're previewing these Eagles games, we like to talk about one thing the opposition may do to win or need to do to win the game and what the Eagles may need to do and should do to win the game. So what's the one thing that you see this Buffalo Bills team needing to hit on for a win against Philadelphia Eagles this week?
I think that it's going to come down for the Bills to winning the turnover battle and limiting
Okay.
mistakes. I think that when the Bills limit their penalties and limit their turnovers on the offensive side, that they are hard to beat. They can hang with pretty much any team out there. They are a Super Bowl contending team.
Yep.
when that happens. When they turn the ball over, when they get all those penalties and silly, penalties that kind of disrupt a drive, whether it's on offense or defense. It's those that kind of kill the drives that we that have been the most impactful. So I think if we limit the mistakes, pretty much, I think the Bills definitely have a good chance of
Yeah,
winning the game.
absolutely. All right. On the flip side, what's the one thing you think the Eagles are going to need to hit on for a win this week against the Bills? I think I know what you're going to say, but what's that one thing?
Well, I'm going to say make Josh Allen uncomfortable.
Okay.
I think that he showed a lot for the during the Houston game. If you guys, and I'm sure that all the coaching staff has watched that game over and over and over again, because if Josh Allen looked terrible at one point this year, it was that game. He didn't look great against the Dolphins either, but the Houston game, he was sacked I think 8 or 9 times. It was ridiculous. So once you make him uncomfortable, once you make him feel like he's got to put the whole game on his shoulders, it tends to not always go the way that everyone wants to. But I mean, I think that if the Eagles offense gets going, it's going to put everybody in a predicament, which also might make Josh Allen feel uncomfortable. So it's not just the defense making him feel that way. It's
Right.
it could be the offense as well, just getting the score up, because the Bills have not been good about coming out. We did last week. They scored I think it was 3 touchdowns in the first half, but we have not done that most of the season.
Yeah.
Most of the season, we just don't get clicking until the second half.
Well, this is going to be an interesting matchup for sure. A lot of us have been waiting for week 17 here, this Eagles Bills matchup. Again, folks, she is Sara Larson from BuffaloRumblings.com. Head on over there, check out everything they have that they're putting up. All great content. Sara, my friend, thank you so much for jumping on our Opposition Territory podcast this week in our preview show. Hope to talk to you at some point down the road, my friend, and come back and join us.
All right, Super Bowl week. It's going to happen.
Yes, I would love it. I would love it.